Jamaica Information Service, our discussion program coming to you live on Facebook. I'm your host, Vaughn Davis. Thank you to everyone joining us online wherever you are around the world. Thank you very much for your eyes. Really glad to have them. And like how we have your attention, do us a favor, man. Share this video with a friend or 2 or 5,000 so we can have a very lively discussion. And as you watch, remember to send in your questions and your comments so we can put them to our guest. Now, the Electoral Office of Jamaica has begun distribution of new voter ID cards to registered voters across the country. These new cards replace those which are set to expire on December 31 this year. This is, of course, significant because persons don't just use them for voting in national elections, they are often used as national IDs. And so it is in everybody's best interest to learn how the new cards are being distributed and what is required of members of the public to facilitate this process. Here to give us details about the rollout of the new cards is Public Education Officer at the Electoral Office of Jamaica, Ms. Daynia Harper. Welcome, Daynia.
Hi, Vaughn. What's up? Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you talk about this very, very important topic. Now,
Yes.
just to give me a quick summary of the situation regarding our voter ID cards and why persons need to hold their heads up and pay attention to what's going on.
Okay, so the current voter ID cards that we have are set to expire on December 31, 2021. So that's the end of this year. In 2019, we started a renewal exercise where we began the renewal of the ID cards because we wanted to ensure that persons would have them in time for this expiration date. And so on October 11, we began the distribution of these new cards to our electors. So we encouraged our electors to come and collect the new cards so that they will have them in time to be used once the current card is expired. So that's why it's so important for persons to visit their locations to collect these cards.
All right, fantastic. Now, so there you have it, persons. Just a quick summary. So we have some new, like as I mentioned in the preamble, we have some new voter ID cards coming out. Like I said, many of us use these cards not just to vote, we use them as our national IDs. So pay attention, get some information how you can go about getting your new card. All right, which brings me to the next question. How exactly does one go through the process, Daynia? Explain that to me. I mean, for persons who may not, this might be the first time they're thinking about getting their card, or persons who might already have their card, what's the process for getting the new cards?
Getting a new card is really simple. It's one of the simplest and easiest processes to get a new voter ID card. So persons who would like to be registered to vote, you will need to apply to have your name added to the voters list. And then once your name is added to the voters list, then you will be given a voter ID card. So it's a really simple process. All persons need to do is visit an Electoral Office of Jamaica, an EOJ constituency office. Visit any office, the closest one to you, and go there and ask to have your name added to the voters list, ask to be registered as a voter. Now, when you go to that office, they will take your fingerprints, they will take a photograph, and then they will take your demographic information. So when you go to the office, just go prepare to have your fingerprints taken and go prepare to have your photo taken also. Once they have taken your information, that is it. Once you leave the office, then in a few weeks, maybe 2 to 3 weeks after that, our staff, along with scrutineers, and the scrutineers are representatives of the political parties. So our staff member plus one representative from the Jamaica Labour Party and one representative from the People's National Party will visit the address that you gave us when you came to our office to register. So this is what we call residence verification. These persons will come to the address to ensure that you actually live at this address. So they must come to this address and find you living there. Once your residence verification is complete, then your application is processed. Now, what we find for a lot of persons is that they may not understand the length of time that it takes because it does take a few months for you to get the voter ID card. And that is because the voters list is published twice per year, and your name must be added to a list in order for you to get an ID card. So we have 2 times when it's published. One is May 31 and the other is November 30, and that's each year. So every year we publish a list on May 31 and November 30. And by publishing the list, we mean that we update the list and publish with the new updates, right? So we will add the names of people, such as those who want to become registered voters and want to get the ID card. We add those persons to the list, and then we take off the names of people who are no longer eligible. So persons who have died, we remove them from the list, and we publish that list twice per year with the updates. Now, what happens, Vaughn? For persons who want to be added to the May list, they must go to one of our offices by March 31. So that is the deadline to get onto the May list. So once you go by March 31, we'll process your application so that your name can be added to the May 31 voters list. And then you get your ID card about the middle of June. And then for persons after that, if you want to get onto the November 30 voters list, what you'll do is go to one of our offices by September 30. So September 30 is the deadline for you to get onto the November 30 list, right? So once your name is added to the list and published on November 30, then you will get your ID card about mid-December. So we encourage persons to go as soon as possible to register. It is free of cost. The only thing that we ask you to provide is your date, your birth certificate once you have it, so that we know we can verify that you're 18 years, right? So once you're 18 years and older, you're a citizen. We just want to verify your age, and it is free. It doesn't take a long time for you to do the application. So we encourage you to go right away. And you can go anytime during the year.
All right, so I'm already getting a bunch of questions online, Daynia. So persons are coming in. Although Kavian is saying there's interruption, no audio. I don't quite know what that problem is. We seem to be having good audio over here. I'm not quite sure. Maybe try refreshing and see if that changes anything. Otherwise, I'll ask the technical persons behind the scene to look and see if there's an issue. Maybe we need to turn things up or something.
Okay.
Well, all right. So first question coming down the pipeline is, Kavian Allen, actually, who's asking, with the cards expiring in 2031, how will the card coincide with NIDS if it's implemented or rolled out before or by 2031? So I guess persons are wondering, with NIDS coming on stream and plans about that. I don't know, if you can answer if there's any planning or any, things that will coincide with that is concerned.
Okay, so it is a popular question because people want to know, with NIDS coming on stream, what is happening with the voter ID card. But the simple response is that the NIDS is separate from the electoral system. So as we know it now, the voter ID card will continue to exist because the EOJ still has a mandate to maintain a voters list, right? So we have the National Register of Voters. We still will have to maintain that even when NIDS is on stream. And based on the law, registered voters are to be issued a voter ID card. So the simple answer is that they will continue to coexist, but they'll be separate. So NIDS is one thing, and then EOJ card, your voter ID card, is something separate. So the NIDS is something that we're happy for because Jamaicans will have a basic identification card, but your voter ID card, you will still need it because your voter ID card really says that you are qualified or you're entitled to vote. So you will continue to need your voter ID card as long as we are maintaining the national voters list, because your voter ID card, basically it says that you are registered to vote, you're entitled to vote, you're qualified to vote.
All right, so I guess it's one of those, you'll cross that bridge when you get there in terms of if there's a new regulation or new matters. But as far as you still have to maintain the role of electors and so on. And on that basis, persons will need their electoral cards, and you're required to maintain that database and so on. All right.
Right.
hope that that provides some clarity for you on that issue. If you have any more questions, feel free to toss them in the comments. That's why we're here. That's what we want to do. We want to talk to you. All right. So keep the questions coming. Next question here is from Melissa Campbell, who's saying it's not really a question, it's more a comment. She's just saying long lines at the office. And I can understand that. I understand that you guys are trying to, as far as the rollout of these new cards are concerned, you're trying to adopt a new method to ensure that there is not just more efficiency, but I guess to mitigate any health hazard, considering it is still COVID time. So can you talk to us about what's going on where that is concerned?
That is true. We too have noticed that there are long lines, and it is a concern for us. We are very concerned about it. We sat and we discussed ways that we could try to mitigate against this, so that we know, as you said, Vaughn, COVID is still happening.
Right.
And we want to be safe. It's not just our staff that we're worried about. We're worried about our electors. We're worried about the public. And so that is why we implemented a specific system for persons to come in and to collect the ID card based on the first letter of their surname. Because we figured if everyone would come on the same day, then we would even have longer lines and we would have chaos, and we don't want to have that for our electors.
Right. So, you can just imagine with I mean, if anybody has been to any business place, based on the way they are staggering persons and spacing people and so on, it's an issue. So this will actually yield some results. So continue for me.
Yes. So what we did was to say to persons, we grouped you based on the first letter of your last name. So we say to persons on Mondays, if your last name begins with letters from A to E, you come in on a Monday. If your last name is F to K, you come in on Tuesdays. For persons whose last names begin with L to P, you come in on a Wednesday. Q to T, you come in on Thursdays, and U to Z, you come in on a Friday, right? So what we do find is that we have a lot of cards to deliver on. And then on a Monday, you do have a lot of people. One of the things that we try to encourage persons to do is to pace yourselves when you're coming for the card, right? So maybe sometimes we don't understand that if you don't come for it this week or next week, you can come the other week, right? So we can pace ourselves when we're going to collect the card. It will be there for you the other week or the week after that. Another thing that we encourage persons to do is go on the day when your last name is being served. So one of the issues that may be causing longer lines is that persons are turning up on the days when their last name is not being served. So we encourage persons as best as possible, go on the day when your last name is being served. And because at the EOJ, we have a policy of not turning back anybody, we've been trying to facilitate persons, because there may be elderly persons or persons coming from far distances who show up and it is not their day to collect, but we try to facilitate them. So we do see the long lines in a lot of our locations. We try to put up tents. We try to put up seating for persons. We do have a few locations where we've even moved the distribution from the office to a location close by, like a church hall, so that we can have more space to facilitate people. So we do understand the long lines, and it's a concern, not just for the EOJ, but there are other organizations that are battling with the same thing. So we see the long lines. Since Monday, we have been assessing the situation. We have been doing our evaluations to see how best we can speed up the process, right? So these are some of the little things that we're battling with, but we're just asking the public to bear with us, a little patience, and to pace yourselves when you're coming for the card.
All right, great. So another question, Elizabeth Brownhouse, she's asking, suggesting we need to find another way to distribute cards. No, she had another. Well, somebody was suggesting that, was there ever a time in which persons used to go in to visit the communities, as in persons would be mobilized to visit community groups and then areas, and then go with cards? Let's say, for example, that there are 100 persons on the register, they live in this particular community, one person will be dispatched to that community to hand out cards, so the persons wouldn't necessarily have to come and join the line and so on. Is any consideration being given to that kind of thing? Is it something that used to happen that could happen again? But give me some feedback where that is concerned.
It is something that we have done before.
Mm-hmm.
However, you would appreciate the logistics of it. It's very difficult at a time like this. So it is not something that we would not consider. I mean, the recommendations can come in, and every recommendation that we get, we consider it. So it is something very useful for us. That feedback is very valuable. It is definitely something we can look into. But for now, we just ask persons to pace yourself and just to come in. But it is not something that's off the table.
Right. I guess Stable Smith is basically the same thing, perhaps, in a little bit more. Basically saying y'all should go in the communities and issue the ready cards when election. Y'all reach the communities for them to renew and apply. So do the same for the issuing and applying. So I just, another person making the suggestion that reaching, flipping the script and the EOJ going to the communities and something to consider.
Yeah. The only thing about that, Vaughn, is that the difficulty is that when persons went into the offices to renew their card, they had to indicate where they would want to pick it up.
Right. Okay.
So cards are at different locations for different persons. So your card is not necessarily at the place where you live. So someone who is registered in Montego Bay, but is in Kingston often, they may have done the renewal in Kingston and asked to pick up the card in Kingston, right? So because of the logistics, it may be difficult for us to implement that right now. But we just ask persons to, we do find that recommendation to be very valuable and very useful.
All right, so here's another useful question. Angela Hines, thank you for your question, Angela. She's asking, what if my previous ID has an incorrect date of birth and I now have a new address? How do you make a change to the ID or have that reflected on the voter ID?
No problem. That is something that you can definitely have done. What we require of you is to visit the EOJ constituency office where you're currently registered. So you're on the voters list for a particular constituency. You go to the office in that constituency and you request the correction. So if it is that your name is spelled incorrectly or your birthday may be incorrect, you need to go to the office and take your birth certificate with you. Whatever applicable documents are required, you take that with you. If you say you want to add your married name, you take your marriage certificate with you. You just take whatever the applicable documents are, you visit the office and you ask for that change to be made. When it comes to changing your address, what we ask you to do is apply for a transfer. So we transfer your registration from the current constituency or the electoral division, the polling division that you're in. So what it is you want to move to another one because you've moved your address. And then you want that address to be reflected on our system. So in that case, all you need to do is go to the EOJ constituency office for the constituency that you live in now. So you move to a new address. The new address that you are now, just go to the EOJ constituency office for that constituency and tell them that you want to apply for a transfer. Now, when you apply for the transfer, it takes a few months to be reflected. So when you come in, you have to tell us what the new address is, and we have to visit the new address. Again, residence verification, very important for us. So we have to visit the address that you gave us, the new address, to verify that you actually live at this address. And then in a few months after that, your application for transfer is processed. And then once it is processed successfully, you are removed from your old address to your new address. So you're moved, say, from the old constituency or the old polling division, and you're into a new one, so you can vote at that new location. But to be simple, it's very easy. Just go to the constituency office where you now live and tell them that you want to apply for a transfer, and we'll take it from there.
I have to big up the team at the EOJ who's in our comments answering a lot of the questions that are coming down, because a lot of questions are coming through. I'm trying to take
Yes.
them in a nice sequential way so that we get everybody's views represented. But
Mm-hmm.
big up the team who's helping.
Yeah, man, we have an excellent hands-on team always ready to
A
help.
lot of assistance. All right, but I'd like to go through the questions, even though they've been answered in the comments. There are persons who might not necessarily be paying attention. All right, so one person is asking, when I went to do my ID last, they said it was on hold. So can I go and apply now for the new one?
They said it was on hold, the renewal process.
I guess the renewal process, or perhaps the ID, I'm
okay.
not sure. Some more
I think I know what they're saying, because when the COVID pandemic surfaced in last year in 2020, because of the pandemic, we had to make a lot of changes to the services that we offered. So for a little while, our offices were closed. And then when we reopened, we had to reopen and gradually increase the services that we offered. So for a brief period in 2020, there are just a few months, we had the renewal process on hold, but that's been going on. It's restarted, so you can go anytime, go to any office and ask for the renewal of your ID card.
All right, fantastic. So hopefully that assists the person who was that was Marvia Cole. All right, Marvia. So if you want to go and get your ID sorted out, you can go right ahead and get the process started. And which does beg the question. I don't know if you answered it before, Daynia. How long does the process take for application to get the actual card and physical card in your hand?
Meaning the renewal of the ID card. All right. So persons who renewed their card between, say, November 2019 up to, say, June or July of this year, your card is ready for collection come October 11. So persons who go for renewal, say now, their card should be ready somewhere around January of 2022. So we encourage persons to go as soon as possible, so your card would be ready somewhere around January. But what happens is, as soon as your card is ready, we'll contact you so that you can come and collect it. So it could be before that also.
All right, fantastic, people. All right, so which actually a question was saying, what about persons? Verona Brooks was asking, what about those persons with their cards having expired dates in 2019? I think you just answered that.
Yeah.
That persons who had their cards expired, you would have applied subsequently. It should be ready. No, right? Already as of October 11 or no, right?
Well, Vaughn, what we want people to pay attention to, though, is not so much the expiry date, but your issue date. So if your card was issued in 2019 and you also got an expiration date of 2019, or maybe you got it in 2018 and you have a 2019 expiration date, then your card should automatically be reprinted, right? So as long as it was issued somewhere around that time, then your card should automatically be reprinted, and those cards would be available at the constituency office where the elector is registered. So once your card was automatically reprinted, then your card would be available at the constituency office where you're registered. But it's very simple for an elector to confirm that, Vaughn. All they will need to do, there are several ways. They can go to the ECJ website, and that is www.ecj.com.jm/query. Or they can just go to the website and click on Check My Status. It will take them to a page where there are some required fields: your first name, your last name, and your date of birth. You enter that information, you click Submit, and then a pickup location would come up. So once you see a pickup location in that field, it means that your card is ready for collection and you can go to that location. So for that, for example, that person whose card was expired in 2019, it means that for usually that kind of card would be available at the constituency office where they are registered, but they can just visit the website to verify, or they can call us at 888-991-VOTE. That's 888-991 8683, and we can confirm that for them also. And they can also email us at eojinfo@eoj.com.jm. We can check on that for them. They can send us a message on social media. Just follow us at EC Jamaica, and we can check on that for you. So in normal circumstances, your card would be available at the constituency office where you are registered.
All right, let's switch that. Well, Kavian J. Allen, and another question regarding EOJ and NIDS ECJ. We touched that briefly before, so we will come back to that. But let me just take a few more questions on some more direct issues insofar as persons asking about the availability and accessing their cards, right? Christine Adigold saying, hello, Daynia, so good to see you. Question. Not sure if you already mentioned this, but if someone is unable to physically go and collect their card, can they send a signed letter with someone else? Is that sufficient?
First of all, hi, Christine. It's so good to hear from you also. All right, just to answer your question, Christine. All right. First of all, we have a policy that we only hand a voter ID card to the owner of the card, just to the card holder. So we must give that card to you directly. It means that no one can collect the card on your behalf. Okay. And it also means that, for example, you can't have a bearer or a courier service pick it up and deliver it to you. We don't do that. However, we do recognize where there are special circumstances. There are persons with disabilities, or there are persons who are incapacitated with, maybe a disability that would prevent them from leaving home and coming for the card. So yes, in those cases, special arrangements can be made for them to get the card. What they would need to do is they can either send a letter, or they need to contact the constituency office. A family member can do it for them. A friend can do it for them, a relative, a neighbor. What we ask you to do is send a letter to the returning officer for the constituency. Just explain the situation, that you are incapacitated, you're unable to collect your voter ID card at the office, and that you're asking for special arrangements to be made for you to get that card, and we will have the card delivered to the person. So in short, no, someone is unable to collect it for you with the letter, but someone can take the letter to us and we make arrangements to get it directly to the person.
All right. Person is asking which day is for W. I believe that's Friday, right? Insofar as the last name for collecting your ID.
That's correct. Friday.
Friday. All right. That's for Jacqueline Wilson. So hopefully that helps you, Jacqueline. Friday is for W. And Dean Hines Roper is asked, well, she's suggesting that you could also send the cards to the respective post offices to get rid of the long lines also. So that's another suggestion for you guys to keep and consider and so on. Let's see. Where do we go to collect the cards? Repetition is the key to learning. So it's always good to restate these things, that Daynia. So where do persons go to collect their cards? This is for Latoya Chinsaman.
All right. So if it is that you had gone into one of our EOJ offices to do the renewal, so it would mean that your card was issued in 2015 or before that, then you would just check the receipt that you got for the pickup location. So when you went to do the renewal at the office, you were given a receipt. Your pickup location is located at the top of the receipt.